We are always happy to welcome back Congressman Ro Khanna. He represents the 17th District, much of the South Bay and Fremont. Ro, good to see you again.
It's great seeing you. Thanks for having me.
Ro, let me start with something about kind of a controversial thing you did that drew a lot of attention, and I don't know whether you want to backtrack from it or not, but you picked the Denver Nuggets to win in 6. That might happen. So are you going to alter your view on the NBA playoffs, or are you going to continue to be an NBA prognosticator?
Well, I should stick with the Warriors. You know, I saw Coach Kerr actually this weekend, and he was talking about gun violence and his advocacy for gun violence of the team. And I still have faith in Steph Curry and our Warrior team to have a good season next year.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Congress right now. I was talking to some friends of mine, and I told them that you were going to be on, and I always like to kind of hear what people think about, like, what would be good questions or what they would like to hear about. And one kind of thing that just about everybody mentioned is there's this feeling right now that with all the infighting going on, and we saw it with like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Mike Johnson, everybody showing up at the Trump trial and postponing business that day and things like that. Is Congress kind of at like a sort of a stagnant kind of situation right now because of all the infighting, or is there more going on? Is more being accomplished than maybe the public or the media even realize or are paying attention to?
Well, the loudest voices have been very destructive. I mean, people insulting each other's physical appearance, largely on the far right. But we're still getting work done. I have a bill of childcare, $10 a day, that I'm going to be introducing, working with some Republicans. I'm bringing steel back to America and decarbonizing steel. That's also a bipartisan bill. The CHIPS Act, which I helped pass, was a bipartisan bill. So if you were a workhorse and you want to get stuff done, that's been my purpose, and that's what my district in Silicon Valley and the only Asian American majority district in the continental United States expects of me. Then you can still get things done.
But is the bipartisanship, is that a little more difficult or much more difficult than it used to be? And how does that affect bills like yours?
It's harder, but you have to be willing to work at it. I am known as someone who's a progressive Democrat, but will work across the aisle. I had more bills signed than any other California Democrat by Donald Trump, because I work with people like Rob Portman and Todd Young and Mike Gallagher and Nancy Mace. And I have a track record of reaching across the aisle. Again, I think my district expects that. They want someone who's not just going to go on TV, but who's going to get legislation done and deliver.
I think one of the things that a lot of people talk about when they talk about Ro Khanna is your expertise and also your knowledge on the inner workings of Silicon Valley and high tech, and how things like that translate into other things, including political influence and things like that. I saw you doing an interview where they were asking you about whether the Democrats were losing Silicon Valley. And I don't know whether people perceived that to be the case anyway before, that Silicon Valley was somehow a very democratic or Democrat-oriented kind of place. But what is Silicon Valley's view of politics right now? And are the Democrats somewhat losing Silicon Valley?
Well, Robert, the Democrats still have overwhelming support from Silicon Valley, as does President Biden. People like the fact that we led the largest science investment since the Kennedy years with the CHIPS and Science Act, and are bringing semiconductor manufacturing back home to America. They like the leadership some of us showed on Silicon Valley Bank and making sure that the depositors were guaranteed. They like the biggest climate investments that we've had with the Inflation Reduction Act. There are some who are concerned. The biggest concern is regarding blockchain. A lot of people are concerned that the administration has been too negative on it. That's why I, Speaker Pelosi, others have supported a bipartisan bill, Patrick McHenry's FI Fit 21, that I hope that the White House will also support. And there has always been some libertarian bent. They say that they want to be for speech and not be censored and be for merit. And I think our party can be for speech and entrepreneurship. But I'm confident we can get a lot of Silicon Valley support.
Something that you've talked about before in the past, but where does crypto figure in our future? Where do you see crypto fitting in?
Well, I think crypto blockchain has a value in settlement of payment. So, when you pay on Apple, your Apple Pay, or you pay on a card, it still takes a day or two for the banks to settle with each other. Crypto makes that instantaneous and can lower fees. And so I think the biggest use case for it is to make it easier and cheaper to transfer money and faster. And that's where I think, where I hope it'll be implemented.
Give me an idea here. Something you and I have talked about before, and kind of trying to measure the progress of it is extremely difficult. But what about AAPI hate and all the different things that have happened with that? Where do you see that now? Do you feel as though we've sort of turned a corner and that things are improving in that way, or has it just become less high profile of a problem, but still a problem nevertheless?
Well, it was at its peak a couple of years ago, and I felt it acutely in my district, being an Asian American majority district, the only in the continental United States. As I said, people would really are concerned, particularly when Trump was saying the China virus. I think he was really ginning up hate against Asian Americans, Chinese Americans. I still hear it, particularly with Chinese Americans fearing some of the rhetoric against China and the backlash of that, the profiling of Chinese American students and Chinese American faculty. And being on the China Select Committee, I've spoken out very strongly that we need to still have visas for Chinese students, that the Justice Department was wrong to do the China Project, which was profiling Chinese Americans. And I view it as my duty to really speak out against profiling of Asian Americans.
In your overview, because you see a lot of things that are not only happening now, but are coming up, is there anything that's coming up that you want the public to keep an eye on, that they may not be thinking about, something that you consider very important for the public at large or the AAPI community at large? Anything that you want to make sure that people sort of pay attention to?
Well, unquestionably, AI is going to have a profound impact on society. It's going to be like the internet. Everyone is going to be impacted by it. And I think we need to look at how we can make sure everyone's benefiting by using it for healthcare to try to solve complex diseases like cancer, by using it to help provide better education, mental health services, but also making sure that it's not being abused, that it's safe, that the algorithms are transparent, that it's not used to displace people's jobs. But this is going to be a key issue over the next decade.
And how should people contact you or your office if they want to express some of these interests?
Well, they should just go to our webpage, our homepage, or tweet at us, or go on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. Now we're everywhere. We're ubiquitous. Or come to one of my town halls.
Okay. And we want to have you on a future show because you as a personality, I think, is very intriguing to people. So we will talk to you in the future in that vein. But otherwise, Ro Khanna, Congressman for the 17th District, thank you very much for joining us today.
Robert, thank you. And thank you for your reporting, particularly of issues of the Asian American community and your tireless work on it for over a decade.
It's mutual.